Tonight, we have a very interesting program from Earl Johnson. And Beth Cantor, why don't you tell us about tonight's program?
Okay, so tonight we have Earl Johnson, and he's going to talk to us about the different tools you can use to present your information about the records management projects that you're doing. And so he's going to evaluate several different types of software, and I'd like to say that he nor the Metro Maryland ARMA chapter support any one of them. He's just going through an evaluation of it. So Earl is a certified records manager, and he has had many esteemed jobs in several highly prominent organizations, both supporting the federal government and with major companies. He comes from the oil industry, banking industry, and like I said, he's also been a contractor in the federal government. And before we start his presentation, let me also let you know about next month's presentation. And that will be March 9th, again at 6 o'clock. And we are looking to have somebody named Wade Catt, and he's from the recently formed historic preservation group, the Friends of Cooch's Bridge Historic Site. Cooch's Bridge is the site of Delaware's only Revolutionary War battle near Newark, Delaware. They are in the process of acquiring and organizing the family archives of the Cooch family and other related records, and we'll be turning some of these over to the Delaware State Archives. And so this is a project that's actually been going on for a while, but this organization is fairly new, and he will be talking to us about the challenges of collecting and organizing and accessioning records. And so without further ado, I'd like to present Earl Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you for the invite to present to this esteemed group. I appreciate it. I'm looking at the attendees, and I recognize some names that I knew from my days in Washington, D.C., working for the government. So it's always good to see you guys. And my good friend, Rick Cantor, good to see you again as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about 5 tools that can help manage, train, market, and promote your records management program. If you can advance to the next slide, please. Here's our agenda. First, I'm going to do a brief introduction entitled "A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words," and we'll know more about that when we get into that. And these are the 5 tools that we want to talk about this afternoon or this evening. One is called Tableau, WalkMe. There's a process called journal mapping or journey mapping. Another tool is called Smartsheet, and then the final process is called Business Model Canvas. Now, I want to note right up front that there is a disclaimer at the bottom of this slide. And this disclaimer simply says that I have no formal relationship with any of these companies or any of these vendors. They aren't paying me to promote their tool. I have used, in full disclosure, I've used Tableau before and I've used WalkMe before. So if I sound a little bit more excited when I'm talking about those 2 in particular, that's why. The other 3 are tools that other records managers have used and speak very highly of. The other thing I want to make sure I mention is that none of these tools are specific to records management. They're all cross-functional tools, which means anybody, any group, any function in your organization can use them. As a matter of fact, with Tableau and WalkMe, we had other functions, other departments in my team, in our company rather, at the time, who were using these tools. And we found out about them through the IT group, and we thought, maybe we can use these as well. So these are not specifically records management tools, but they are tools that will work well with training and marketing and promoting and reporting on your records program. The third bullet, we're going to have a review after we go through each of these tools. I'm going to give you some resources towards the end of the presentation that you can, if you're interested in them, you can look up these reviews or these references or these resources rather, and find out more about them. Just as a hint, Tableau, WalkMe, and Smartsheet all have free versions. So if you want to kick the tires, if something really catches your eye among those 3, and kind of check out a little bit more about them before you want to go in and purchase anything, you have a chance to do that because there are free versions of those 3 in particular. And then at the end, we're going to have some questions. I hope it's okay to wait till the end for questions. Next slide, please. Okay, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, I've found in my career, and I've been around many, many years, that sometimes records management data can be a little dry. Sometimes if you have spreadsheets and you have rows and columns of numbers and you're using that to update your management or to work with your users, sometimes that information can be kind of dry. A lot of times you're looking at those and unless somebody explains it to you, you're not really sure what it is you're looking at. So these 5 tools in particular are going to help you visualize what that data means. And the idea is that when you're visualizing this kind of data, it becomes more appealing to your audience, whether your audience is users or executive management, being able to visualize, being able to use graphics, and particularly being able to interact with the data can make a huge difference in how that data comes across to your users. Next slide, please. Okay, Tableau. Tableau is a tool that I've used. I used it when I was the records manager at Universal Creative down in Orlando. It's a BI tool, a business intelligence tool, and it presents and analyzes data in a very visual way. I have to admit, and I may sound a little bit jaded here, but Tableau is probably the coolest tool I think I've ever used in my career, certainly. You can create interactive and shareable dashboards, and we'll see in a minute in the overview how that is going to look like. You can add files and databases and other data sources all into this Tableau product, and everything will come out on your dashboard the way you want it. There is a bit of a learning curve to Tableau, I will admit. It took us a while to kind of get the hang of it. But once you do and you start, those creative juices kind of start to flow, you'll find that you ask yourself, well, where has this been all my life? Tableau is a great publishing tool. And what I really like about it is that storytelling aspect of it. It is a very, very cool tool to use to tell stories. And one of the things I like to say from a record standpoint is that we like to tell stories. We like to tell stories about our records to our users, to management in particular. So if we can go to the next slide, we can look at I believe there's an overview. Okay, there you go.
Can y'all hear the?
I don't hear the sound. Does anyone else hear?
No.
Did you click the?
If you're looking for a business intelligence solution, you'll want to consider Tableau. But if you're not sure where to start, use our product selection tool to get a free shortlist of BI software recommendations. Click the link in the description below to get started. Tableau is a business intelligence software platform that includes several tools: Tableau Desktop, Server, Online, Prep, and Public. Tableau Desktop, Server, and Online all effectively serve the same function, with the main differences being where they're hosted and the scale at which they operate. Tableau Prep is a data prep tool that lets users extract, transform, and load data, while Tableau Public is a free data visualization tool perfect for journalists, politicians, teachers, and students. Tableau is best known for its data visualization product, so we'll focus on Tableau Desktop in this video. Once you open Tableau Desktop, you'll want to create a new workbook so you can start building visualizations. To do this, start by connecting to a data source. In the left-hand toolbar, you can choose from a number of different sources to either connect to data stored in a file or on a server. Supported file types include Microsoft Excel, text, JSON, and PDF files, among others. For servers, you can connect to sources like Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and Amazon Redshift. Next, drag and drop your data sources into the work canvas to start making visualizations. You can work with multiple data sources, creating relationships between them based on common fields. Now you can start building visualizations. Create a new sheet at the bottom of the interface, similar to how you would in Excel. Drag and drop your data fields and measures into the row and column cells to start finding insights in your data. You can also drop data fields directly onto the canvas to work with your visualization. Looking at some sample data, let's say you want to build a simple visualization that shows the total number of sales for different product categories by country. Start by dragging the category dimension to the rows field and the country dimension to the columns field. Now, go down to Measures and drag and drop Sales to the rows field, to the right of the category dimension. Tableau automatically generates a series of bar graphs that show you how many sales you've made across 3 different product categories by country. This is an automatic visualization, but you can make some changes to customize it how you like. Let's color code the countries by going to our measures and dragging and dropping country to the color mark. I can also change the visualization to have the country names displayed as labels by moving the country dimension to the label measure. Since we're dealing with geographic data, it might be helpful to see our data visualized as a map. Tableau makes this easy through the Show Me function in the top right corner of the display. Once your data is in place, click Show Me, and Tableau will recommend some relevant visualizations based on the type of data you're working with. For our example, we have several different options, but let's go with the first map suggestion to see our data plotted on a map as dots. Because we're working with different product categories, Tableau automatically turned our data into mini pie charts so we can see how the different products sell in each country. Making individual visualizations is great, but Tableau really shines when you create dashboards and stories. Use the buttons along the bottom of the display to create a new dashboard or story, and then use your existing visualizations to begin building them. For dashboards, drag and drop sheets and objects onto your canvas to create summaries of multiple visualizations. You can preview the way your dashboard will look across devices, and you can resize your dashboard accordingly to better fit certain screens. Stories are a unique Tableau feature that function like presentations. Similar to dashboards, you can start creating a story by dragging and dropping sheets and dashboards onto your canvas. Use the text cells above the canvas to provide context or create a narrative, and add additional points of clarification using the floating text box tool. You can share your visualizations in several ways. First, let's give this visualization a name, then we can right-click directly on the visualization to quickly share it. Go to Copy Image to copy this image to your computer's clipboard, and then paste it into a social collaboration software tool like Slack or Microsoft Teams, a text document, or elsewhere. If you have a Tableau server or Tableau Online account, you can share your visualization to your site by clicking the Share button near the top center of the display. Finally, you can also export your visualizations to PowerPoint as a version or as a packaged workbook for other Tableau users. With the exception of copying a visualization to your computer's clipboard, you can use these sharing methods to share a sheet, a dashboard, or a story. Still not sure if Tableau is right for you? Use our product selection tool at technologyadvice.com to get a free shortlist of BI software recommendations. Click the button on the left to get started.
Okay, now Tableau, one of the cooler things I thought helped us when I used it, we have multiple
Tableau is a
locations at the time. Oops, yeah, we can go to the next slide. We had multiple locations at the time, and we were able to develop dashboards for each of the different locations, and we mapped that to a map of the US. So when that came across to our management, they were very impressed, I thought at least, with the ability to move the cursor and click on a particular location to see information about the records for that particular location. I thought that was a really, really cool thing to do. Now, there's a question in the chats, and it's from Angel, I think. How does Tableau compare with MS Power BI? To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I've never used that particular application, but there are resources on the internet that will compare Tableau to other applications that are similar, that do similar kinds of things. So you might want to do some research there. But I've never used Microsoft Power Business Intelligence, and so I can't tell you what the comparison would be. But I know it's out there. One of the things that Tableau can do, of course, as you see on the screen, is this chart that's part of a dashboard. In this particular case, this is something that measures the happiness in the world. And there's this company that's involved in determining how happy each country is. And you can see by this chart, the US ranks number 18. So my question to you is, who do you think is number one? Who do you think is the happiest country on this planet? We're going to get back that, give you the answer at the end of the presentation. You might be surprised at who is the number one country in terms of happiness in the country, and the world rather. Next slide, please. Okay, so and I should have mentioned up front, in looking at these 5 tools, because there are so many of them, and because we only have about an hour or so to cover them, there's not going to be a whole lot of detail in terms of detail about these particular applications or processes. But again, there are resources at the end of the presentation that you can go to. You can do your own searching on the internet as far as getting more detailed information about them if you're so interested in them. Okay, WalkMe. WalkMe is another application that I've used personally. It's probably the second coolest application I think I've ever used before. I used it again when we were at Marathon at Universal in Orlando. This is a interactive step-by-step guidance tool that when you are filling out a form or when you are going through a process, and even if the process is somewhat complex, a little bit difficult, your users are being challenged by it, you can develop tips to help them through the process. They call them smart tips. They also call the smart walkthroughs tips as well. And basically it simplifies the user experience with on-screen guidance. WalkMe is cloud-based and it's user-centric. If we can go to the next slide. And we can watch this overview for WalkMe.
Hi, my name is Ariel. I would like to show you today how WalkMe integrates with Salesforce. So when there's a new user who logs into Salesforce and he actually wants to complete a task, instead of looking for the Help and Training tab or Googling it or calling a friend, now he can simply click on the WalkMe menu bar. He selects the type of task he actually wants to complete. Let's say we want to make a new price book. And now the WalkMe kicks in, showing the user exactly what he actually needs to do. While he's actually doing it, you can see how WalkMe balloons wait for the user's action and then taking him step by step in an error-free environment until he actually self-tasking completion. Now, there are many different features about WalkMe. Some of the coolest ones are, for instance, wanting to have an auto start. A new user can type in on Opportunities tab, for instance, clicks on it, and there the auto start begins. The user now can start his walkthrough. Another great feature is using WalkMe triggered via a link. For instance, going on an email, and the user clicks on the link, and then again the first tip balloon pops out for the user to start his walkthrough. Creating those walkthroughs is super easy. Anyone can do it in a matter of minutes. Let's create a simple walkthrough together. All you have to do to begin is open the WalkMe editor. Then click on the new step. And as you can see, all the elements on the screen are selectable. Now, to begin, I'm going to click on the Opportunities tab. So I click on it. The balloon now pops up. I write the instructions that are required. And now I continue going over this process. And each time, I'm adding another tip balloon for the user. As I mentioned before, WalkMe is incredibly powerful. You can branch walkthroughs, skip steps, auto start. You can pretty much support any business process you can think of. It's also a very, very flexible product. You can customize everything, literally everything, the colors, the language, the shapes, and so on and so forth. WalkMe takes its solution a step further, providing its customer an analytics and report section. Now, WalkMe Analytics will show you, the walkthrough owner, how many people started a walkthrough, which specific walkthrough did they start, did they complete that walkthrough, and if they didn't complete it, what step did they end up getting to? Now, The analytics will also help you, the business owner, achieve certain goals. For example, if you create a walkthrough that will show you how to create an opportunity, now you can measure exactly how many of those users started the walkthrough and then finally achieved that goal. We take it a step further, allowing you to drill down and see the exact funnel of the walkthrough, the flow and percentage breakdown, and much, much more information that you can even add to the analytics section, like showing exactly which users did what, from which browsers they came from, and the language they accessed, and so much more.
Okay, thank you. Now, WalkMe, we found when we used it before that it was a great tool to help simplify processes and programs. When I was at Universal, some of our processes were a little complex, a little complicated. And when we implemented WalkMe, which sits on top of the actual process or form or whatever it is you're trying to do, it made a huge difference. Those balloons would pop up instructing the users exactly what information to enter, and it made a big difference. WalkMe was a very cool tool. We can go to the next slide. You may remember
my name
from
is Ariel. I would like
the
to
next slide. There we go. Yeah, this is the tip balloon, as they call them, where the creator can actually type in the instructions that they want the user to follow, and in terms of getting the information that they need. Next slide, please. Journey mapping. Okay. You'll find that in these tools, there's a common theme, and the theme is storytelling. All of them are very good at telling stories and visualizing, making visualizations for things. Journey mapping involves communicating and understanding what your customer needs and basing that on how you develop and design your program. Journey mapping can include touch points as well as pain points, customer input and sentiments, and other things that are all plotted in a very sequential manner. And that makes a huge difference, going in the order that they need to go to for it to make sense. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about journey mapping and look at the overview.
Hi, I'm Megan Grocki from MadPow, and today I'll be showing you how to create customer journey maps. Journey maps are a visual interpretation of an individual's relationship with an organization, service, product, or brand over time and across channels. A journey map helps us explore answers to the what-ifs that arise during research and conceptual design. They should include items like personas, a timeline, the emotions being felt by customers, touch points, and channels where the interactions are taking place. So how does one create a customer journey map? There are 9 key steps. Number 1, review the goals for the product or service. Number 2, gather our research. Some of my favorite research methods include customer interviews, contextual inquiry, customer surveys, customer support logs, web analytics, social media, and competitive intelligence. Number 3, generate a list of customer touchpoints and the channels on which those touchpoints occur. For example, the touchpoint could be pay a bill, and the channels associated with that touchpoint could be pay online, pay in person, or pay via mail. Number 4, conduct an exercise called an empathy map. Empathy maps depict the various facets of a persona and his or her experiences in a given scenario. The goal of the empathy map is to get a sense of how it feels to be that customer in this experience. Number 5, brainstorm with what we call lenses. This means we generate ideas in a short period of time with words representing key concepts, brand attributes, or mindsets that help us look at a problem in a different way. Number 6, complete an affinity diagram where we organize ideas and find cohesion in the team's concepts. It helps us focus on the right solutions for this audience. Number 7, this is the part you've been waiting for, sketching the journey. This is where we put together all the ideas the team generated for how to improve the future customer journey. Get creative on how you lay it out. There's no one way of sketching a customer journey. Number 8, refine and digitize. If visual design isn't your strong suit, consider collaborating with someone who can turn your journey map into an impressive artifact. And lastly, number 9 is to share them with zeal. Shout from the rooftops and display them prominently in common areas. That's all. I hope you found this useful, and best of luck in creating your own journey maps.
Okay, journey mapping, a very interesting concept. And a records manager I talked to who used this particular process thought it was great. I'd never heard of it before, to be honest with you, so I had to do some research to fully understand what it does and what it means. But it's basically laying out for your user, for your customer, your internal customer or your external customer, the process and how you want it to see, both from your perspective as the creator, as the records management function, to your user's perspective as your client or as your customer. If we can go to the next slide, we can see a little bit more about what this looks like.
Hi, I'm Megan Graphically.
Next slide.
And today...
There we go. Okay. This is what it looks like illustrated. For example, Sarah, in this particular scenario, wants to go to the movies, and her expectations are that it will be a great movie, that she'll get a good seat, and that the staff she has to interact with will be friendly. So there are 4 categories, if you will, that she broke down with to determine how to meet her expectations. You know, the decision, what movie to see, the travel category, how am I going to get there, the experience, and then the return. And underneath each of those categories are steps that she envisions or using to meet her expectations. We all kind of go through this, even if it's a very subliminal type thing. We have expectations or scenarios, and we have expected outcomes from those scenarios. In this case, this illustrates just what we were just talking about. And you can see by the line as below there, the various reactions to each of those categories and each of the steps within those categories. Journey mapping is something I hope to be able to practice one day. I think it's a pretty cool process. The other thing I want to mention, again, I should have mentioned this earlier. As you look at each of these tools, try to think about them in terms of your own records management program. As I said, none of these are records management specific, but if you can envision your data, your processes, your program, and how these tools might fit as we look at these overviews, then it might make a little bit more sense to you. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to show our records management program using the tools that I've used before because that's proprietary and I couldn't bring it up. So as you look at these that are used in business applications, think about it in terms of records management business. Next slide, please. Okay, Smartsheet. Smartsheet is a SaaS, a software as a service application. It's project management based. Very, very similar to, if you've used Microsoft Project, then you're already halfway home in terms of understanding how Smartsheet can work. However, in my opinion, Smartsheet goes way, way beyond Microsoft Project. In the Smartsheet, you can attach files and comments and other things. There are several different ways, graphical ways to look at a Smartsheet, including the calendar view, which I think is really, really cool as well. But you can do the standard Gantt charts, and of course, there's a spreadsheet view. You can generate reports and dashboards. And the cool thing, I think, is that you can combine data from different sources. If you have Excel spreadsheets, if you have databases, other sources that you want to tap into, you can pull all that data into this one Smartsheet that makes, in my feeling, in my opinion, the Smartsheet a really, really cool tool to use. Next slide, please. Okay, let's look at the overview for Smartsheets.
Smartsheet is the platform for dynamic work that intuitively allows your teams and organization to create the workflows and solutions they need to quickly achieve more. It's where you can capture all of your data in one place, view it differently, and set up automation to get things done. To begin, all of the work you do starts in a sheet, a flexible data capture and management location that allows you and your team to collaborate in real time through a single cloud-based experience. Sheets, in turn, are made up of columns and rows. Columns are customizable and track specific data. Things like contacts, dates, drop-down lists, checkboxes, symbols, and system data, like created by and modified date. Rows help you group tasks into hierarchies and keep the team organized with attached files and links and conversations, documented right where you need them. From a basic grid view in a sheet, you can also flex to Gantt, card, and calendar view. Gantt view is good for looking at tasks and dependencies. Use card view to clearly visualize and prioritize your work. And calendar view lets you see all of your tasks over time. You can also share your sheets with team members inside and outside of your organization to collaborate in real time. Some additional features to check out are forms to capture data easily and accurately and feed it right into your sheet. Automation to set up notifications and reminders to keep work moving. Proofing to review and comment on work in a streamlined approval process. Reporting to track, monitor, and manage key information. Dashboards to share out a customized view across your organization. And easily built no-code apps to fit your team's specific workflows. To get going, you can start from scratch, import work from other sources, or use one of our pre-built templates or template sets that we've set up for you. To learn more, be sure and visit our Help and Learning Center.
Okay, thank you. If we go to the next slide, we can see
Smartsheet is the platform for dynamic work.
this is what it looks like illustrated. As you can see, you have bar charts, pie charts, spreadsheet-like graphics, including graphics, pictures, and so forth, all within the same document. Smartsheet is another tool that I hope to be able to use one day. The records manager I talked to who used it, again, thought it was a wonderful tool and was very, very high on it. The cool thing about Smartsheet, as I've mentioned before, you can pull from a number of different sources and have everything displayed on the same sheet at one time at the same time. And I think that particular aspect, because as records managers, we do pull from different sources, databases and spreadsheets and reports and so forth, that having everything be able to display at one time at the same time, I think would be a huge, huge plus for us. Next slide, please. Okay, this particular process business model canvas, again, goes back to that storytelling theme we were talking about earlier, which is a touch point for all of these applications or all of these tools. This can give you a very high level, comprehensive view of your program, of your detailed program. I think business model canvas is another one of those things that I hope to be able to use at some point down the road as well. There are 4 aspects or 4 categories that make up the business model canvas. So you can see them there: infrastructure, offering, customers, and then finances. The inventory or the infrastructure part is about the things you need: the people, the processes, the technology, and the partners. And we all need all of those in order to make our program work. The offering is the value of what you're offering, the service that you're offering. The customers, of course, that's self-explained. We all need customers. We provide a service to internal customers, the accounting department, finance group, legal, whoever your customers are. And of course, the finances, the expenses that are involved in measuring all of this. Next slide, please. Business model canvas is based on these 9 building blocks, and we're not going to go into them in detail because the overview that's coming up will do that. But the customer segments, the value propositions, which is the service or the offering, the channels, customer relationships, cannot tell you how key that is, as I'm sure you already know. the revenue streams and resources, activities, and of course, number 8, the key partnerships. Records management, as you all know, does not operate in a vacuum, or hopefully it doesn't. People have to know who you are and what it is you do, and you have to have partners with IT, with legal, or whoever else your partners are with, your partnerships are with, in order to do your job and do it well. And then finally, the cost structure. If we can move to the next slide, we can look at a brief overview for business model canvas.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
Okay, business model canvas, if we can go to the next slide, we can kind of see what that looks like illustrated. And you can see the 9 building blocks that were mentioned before, and within each one, you can see the steps on these little post-it note type deals that make up, that are used for that particular block. Business model canvas was probably the most difficult in looking at these particular 5 tools that I found to kind of understand how it works. As we go through this, and you probably are thinking, based on some of the questions we're getting, looking at this from a record standpoint, you probably are using tools that are similar to these. So these particular tools are, as I said before, are not the say-all, do-all. They're certainly not the complete list. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of tools that can do these kinds of things. And the trick, I think, is to find out what's available at your organization. We did not know, for example, when we used the tools that we used, WalkMe and Tableau, that they were even available. And we just kind of found out about them by accident, but it turned out to be a good accident for us because they were great in what we needed them for. So if you are close to your IT department, where you have that great relationship, and you can ask, hey, what kind of tools do you guys have, and how are you using them? Who's using them, and how are they being used? You might already have some of these things. Next slide, please. Okay, in our review, we talked about these 5 tools, as I mentioned before, where they are not the be-all, end-all type tools. There are certainly others out there that are great and can be useful for you. The whole point of the presentation, of my research in doing this presentation, was to simply suggest that there are other things out there other than the standard Excel spreadsheet and and Word document and PowerPoint presentations that can get your message across, get it across in a way that it can be touched and understood by users and by management. You're able to visualize using some of these tools that data that you have and make it understandable, a better understanding to your users, because they can see it, they can react to it, they can interact to it. And I think that's the difference. I know in my experience in using some of those tools, being able to visualize them and have that user see and play with and move things around in that dashboard makes a huge difference in terms of them being able to understand. And that was an eye-opener for me. We all have records management, our own records management toolkits, and whatever you have in your toolkit, you might, if you're thinking about adding some things in terms of being able to better get your message across, these kinds of tools might be some of the things you might want to add. Next slide, please. These are some of the resources that you can look up. Again, a lot of this I found through the internet researching. Some of them I already knew for WalkMe and Tableau in particular, so I kind of knew where to go to find that information. By the way, if you are on LinkedIn, all of these processes and applications have LinkedIn pages. If you're on Facebook, they also have Facebook pages as well. So that's another source you can look at and go through in terms of learning more about them. And again, note in Tableau and WalkMe and Smartsheet, there are free versions. With Smartsheet, there's a free 30-day trial. You can sign up for to see if that's going to work for you. Remember, Smartsheet is the SaaS, the software as a service. WalkMe, there is a free basic plan, limited features, but it's still free. And again, you can kind of kick the tires and make a determination if that's what you want. And then Tableau Public is free, full version. It's free. I don't think you can save to their site, but I don't think you can send out dashboards and things like that. But again, it gives you an opportunity to check things out for any of those applications. Next slide. Of course, as I mentioned before, there are other data visualization tools as well. Baggett Library, iText, Tree Size, which was, I think, discussed last month's meeting, GDuplicator Finder, Droid, and so on. Some of you who may work for federal government agencies might recognize some of these because I did find some of them on the NAR website. And they were not necessarily, they were just listed as resources that you can use. They weren't necessarily promoting them. But there are, I'm sure, hundreds and maybe even thousands of tools that records managers can use to visualize their data, to make their data interactive and more graphical, so that it doesn't have to be so dry and plain and so on. Next slide. As I wrap up this presentation, we're open to questions. If you have questions, some of you have already had questions in the chat. Before we go any further, though, I want to go back to the slide about the happiest country in the world. Any guesses as to who that would be? You could put an answer in chat or unmute and call out an answer if you think you know. You might be surprised. I noticed in chat somebody suggested that Tibet would be the happiest country in the world. Remember, the US was number 18. So I'll give you the top 5. Number 5 is Norway. Number 4 is Iceland. Number 3 is Switzerland. Number 2 is Denmark. So hopefully you're seeing a theme here. The number 1 happiest country for the 4th year in a row is Finland. So those Scandinavian countries must be doing something that we aren't doing here in the U.S. Because I found that to be very interesting, and I wouldn't argue with it. I mean, I'm sure whatever the parameters are. There's some guesses coming in. Sweden and Switzerland was on the list. Good, But I thought it was a very interesting way to illustrate that kind of data to determine who the happiest countries in the world are.
So, Earl, just the cynical side of me thinks that we're one of those countries, the ones that wrote the surveys.
You know what? I hadn't thought of it
Statistic
that
is
way.
really hard to tell. Yeah.
I didn't see who published that, created that survey, so you could have a point there. But I thought that was a really interesting, and if you remember the graphical display for that, I thought was very interesting as well. If you go to that source for that display, you can use your cursor to scroll through for each of the different countries that they measured, and see how. And I think even on that site, there are parameters that they use to determine the happiest countries in the world. Cheryl says cold weather and alcohol makes for a good combination, I guess. Shorter days and long temperatures. It makes for another good day. Good responses. Any questions? There is one question. Would you recommend IT Connect? I guess, would you recommend, this is from Angel, IT to connect the data analytics tools to, I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Yeah, hi. Earl, great presentation. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
A part two. So I knew somebody that had worked with ClickSense, and they leveraged their IT to connect, I guess, through Python on the back end to his records management and the e-discovery. And then it produced all of these intuitive charts based on the data that was in there.
I think that would be a great idea. I've never done that, but that doesn't mean that I certainly won't try that in the future when I given the opportunity. IT can be a huge strategic partnership, if you will, and whatever you can do to work with them, particularly when it comes to helping you display your data, will be huge. They were a big plus for us in terms of using WalkMe in particular, but as well as Tableau as well. As a matter of fact, our analyst who helped us with our Tableau process was actually in the IT department, and they were kind of on loan to us in records management to help us with Tableau. So that's a good idea. I think the data analytics that you're talking about would be huge in terms of making your data more visual and graphical, and especially if you can find a way to make it interactive. I cannot tell you how much I think that helped our program at the companies I worked at where we used those. Management can sit there and use their cursors and look at different things and bring different things up on the screen based on different parameters. I thought that more than probably anything else went a long way towards helping them understand what records management does. This is it. This is what we do. You can play with it. You can kick the tires. You can see it. And I think that was a huge plus. So I think that's a great idea. I would recommend that. Yes.
Thank you, Earl. Thanks for all. Just
sure.
Amazing.
Another question from Henry. Does WalkMe integrate with M365? The short answer is my WalkMe doesn't necessarily integrate with any particular application. It sits on top of the application. So if you have a form or if you have a process, whatever that form or process is in, you can add WalkMe as a top layer to work with your users in simplifying that process. So it doesn't really integrate per se with any one application, but it can enhance that application because it sits on top of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, if not, I want to thank Beth again so much and Beth has her response to one of the happiest countries was Japan. And I was surprised. I'm not sure where Japan ranks in that list. I've been fortunate enough to have worked in Japan for a number of years. And I would agree they're probably a pretty happy bunch there. But I'll go back to that source and see where they rank. They might rank higher than the US, but that's a good guess. But again, Beth, thank you so much for inviting me to meet. Thank you all for your attention. Hopefully you found this helpful. And if you come across any great tools that's not on that list, please send me an email or shout out, and I'd love to add it and learn more about it. Like you, I continue to build my records management toolkit with things that at some point can help. So I'd love to learn about any other tools that you guys use that you might find helpful. Thank you.